we were doing a little last-minute shuffling on some stuff, and Mary Bell told me, she said, that would be fine with her. She was flexible. And I'm glad you are, Mary Bell, because I'm going to add something to it that you didn't know that I was going to add. But it came to me as I was looking out over the vast number of people here, right here. And it was actually came from our Sunday school lesson last Sunday. And our Sunday school lesson was about the value of a virtuous woman from the last chapter of the book of Proverbs. And of course, I will attest to the value of a good woman. That's as the Bible appropriately says, is above the value of diamonds or pearls or anything. But in verse 23 of that same passage, it said, her husband is known in the gates. Now I've got to find it again, I just lost it. Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. I was over at y'all's house one time, and I think it was me and Jerry, and I don't know if Jerry's here today or not, but I think it was Jerry and I. And y'all had the mobile home, and I was looking at the stickers of all the states that y'all had been through. And if I'm not mistaken, at the time you said there were only 4 that y'all hadn't been in. And I'm pretty sure there's got to be one person from every one of those states here today, just about because all the people here. But I tell you what, the number of people here, I think, attest to the value that y'all placed on your friendship with Cecil and Marybelle and the rest of the family. And I know that she and Julie and Mike and the rest of the family appreciates that very much during this time right here. Because, like I said a while ago, it's a wonderful time. As a believer, to us as a believer, it's a wonderful time. This is not a sad time to the fullest extent of sadness. This is a celebration of Cecil's memory of his life. Here in just a moment, we're going to invite you to share with us some of those memories. That is after we hear Marybelle talk about the courtship that Cecil had, the proposal, I understand. I'm just chomping at the bits to hear that part. But this is more than anything a celebration of the homegoing that Cecil experienced Monday. I was talking to a good friend of mine Sunday night, tomorrow a week ago, and I told her, I said, I hope you have a good day tomorrow. Because oftentimes Monday seems to set the stage for the rest of the week. And little did I know that at 15 after 6 Monday morning when I was at work, I would get a phone call from a number that I did not recognize. And upon punching that number, I would hear Marybelle's voice telling me that Cecil had passed from this life to the next about 15 minutes before then. And, you know, I could almost imagine the emotions I thought I would feel, because I'm a pretty emotional person if you know me very well. But, you know, the more I got to thinking about it, the entire week, what I thought about, I thought about the times that we used to have down at the old home place, Uncle Woodrow's or Papa's down there, and all the congregation of Bonners that would get down there. And some were rowdy and some were not, but we had a good time. But more than anything, I got to thinking about what Cecil is experiencing right now. What is he experiencing right now? And what he's not experiencing anymore. So I want you to think about that. Think about that. Cecil was born. This is another thing. I always knew there was something extra, the reason I liked Cecil so well. Cecil was born April 29th, 1937. And being an April baby too, I can only say, hey, good folks in April. In Birmingham, Alabama. And he did pass from this earth on May 12th, 2014 in Columbus, Mississippi. Of course, he is survived by his wife for 51 years, Marybelle. 51 years, that's a long time. That speaks volumes in itself right there. Daughter Julie, son Michael, and his wife Angela, and two grandchildren, Michaela. Is that right? Correct. Wonderful piano player too. And Jonathan Bonner. And those two, they just look like great kids right there. Of course, he does have two brothers, Errol Bonner and his wife Marina, and Alan Bonner and his wife Monica. And he was the son of my Uncle Woodrow Bonner and my Aunt Vera, two wonderful people, I thought. If you will, for our prayer, for our opening prayer, Mary Beth has requested that we use the 23rd Psalms. And if you will, follow with me as I say, and hopefully as you repeat, hopefully everybody knows it well enough, the 23rd Psalms for our opening prayer. And let us begin. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thine art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Bright and fair, and streets of shining gold, a place where loved ones gone before are singing around the throne their holy songs of praise and love in their eternal home. And I would hear, I'm going to shut this real quick. Pray somebody may jump out there at me. But I've been in funeral services before, and I would hear the folks that was conducting it, and the preachers and the pastors or lay speakers, whoever, they would be doing their part wonderfully. But I would be sitting there thinking to myself, you know, I would just love to just tell everybody maybe a particular experience that I had shared with the person who had deceased. And I was thinking to myself, boy, that deserves everybody to know that. Mary Beth told me, she said, and one thing's going to be a little different in this service. She said, everybody's going to get a chance to share any stories that they wish to share concerning Cecil or their feelings about Cecil or you or the children or anything like that. And so at this time, we're going to do that. We're going to give you an opportunity. If you wish to stand where you're at, that'll be fine to stand up. If you wish to come and speak behind the pulpit, that'll be fine also. But we want to extend an invitation to anybody who wishes to share a story or stories about something that you remember or memory or something like that. But we're going to wait because I've got to hear about this proposal that you keep talking about. So Mary Beth, you get to go first by default.
First of all, I want to say I appreciate everybody that's here. When Cecil was in the service, he was in the Panama Canal Zone for 2.5 years. And he said he decided that when he got home, he wanted to get married and have a family. And he said, I'm going to marry the first woman that I see when I get off the bus and reach my family. He saw my mother. and that's the truth, because Glendon was with him. But Cecil and I dated a little while, and we parked in the car in front of the Western Auto Store downtown Reform. I know a lot of you know where that's at. And we sat there and talked, and this was Cecil's proposal. If you want to get married, be ready next Saturday.
So now you know, Michael.
I'm just going to write that down. It worked. It honestly worked. 51 years later, it worked. So, amen. Okay, now that Maribel has got that, now anybody that wishes to, just feel free to. Oh, here it comes. Let me get this. Let me sit down again because I know I need to get out of the way.
So I may take a little longer than my mother. And I feel hidden behind the flowers, so I'm a little short, so I think I have to come out this way. And it's weird. I've seen Vera up here many times, so this is a little weird for me. Mom and Dad have 2 other children besides Michael and myself. Later on, you'll be hearing from Eric, an exchange student that lived with them for a while. But Karina is someone that's been a part of the family for over 30 years. And she couldn't be with us today because of the neck surgery, so she wanted me to read some thoughts for her. So it'll take me a little longer because I have to read hers and then I have to tell you mine. All right. So this is from Karina. To say Cecil Bonner was like a father to me would be a great understatement, due to the fact that he was the only positive father figure I ever had in my life. I met him when I was barely 16 years old, while I was residing at Palmer Home for Children in Columbus, Mississippi. He and Maribel became my foster parents by taking me on weekends and holidays. They opened their hearts and their home to me, and they gave me a place where I felt wanted, safe, and loved. I don't remember when or even why I started calling him Pop. It just seemed to naturally fit him. He was always so strong and in all the right ways I felt a father should be. Strong in character, strong in integrity, strong in leading by example, but most of all, strong in how he loved and protected his family, wife, and children. He would not want me to express that he was a perfect person, but in my eyes, he was the closest to what I could imagine a perfect dad being like. I am not surprised to hear of all who have come to pay their respects to him today, because he truly was a good man. He was willing to lend a neighbor or friend a hand at any time, even before having to be asked. I have many fond memories of him sharing his time with me, if it be just to lend an ear or give me a gentle advice. He helped me come to a decision to go into the military after high school, since I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I'm very proud to share that we both are veterans. He wisely knew the military would teach me discipline, self-esteem, and a confidence I needed to be able to be strong within myself. It turned out to be the best thing for me, and he was right. It did teach me all those things and more. I will miss him dearly. He was my pop, the closest thing I ever had to a father and a dad. I will always revisit stories of growing up, how he would end up laughing about some crazy things he did and lived through. Thinking of his smile and laugh warms my heart now and always will. I love you, Pop. So, now on to my story. I visited with Mom and Dad in March because I felt like it was getting to that point where he may not be able to know me or talk to me. And so while I was visiting, Mom and I think we're out in the cemetery at Arbor Springs. And Mom said to me, she said, look there. She said, you know, life is in the dash. And at first it didn't quite hit me what she meant, but when you look at a tombstone, you see the birth date and the death date, and oftentimes that's all we know about a person. So in us doing a lot of our family tree, I have a lot of relatives, forefathers, foremothers, you know, that long time ago. I know nothing about them other than the birth date and the death date. So I'm very thrilled about the fact that we're sharing stories about Dad today, because I'm sure I'm going to hear some I've never heard. And I want to share a few things that I remember about him that make him the man that he was. For example, a lot of people would say about Dad that he has character and integrity and this and that and the other thing. And he did. And he was a very humorous guy. So just a few things that I remember. For example, one night at dinner, the four of us are sitting there, and Dad very matter-of-factly said to all of us sitting there at the table, "Did you know that we eat over a ton of dirt every day?" And of course, Michael and I are like, "No, we don't." And so we argued, and finally Dad said, "Yes, we do. Right underneath our table is a ton of dirt at least." I was in the band in high school, well, junior high and high school, and my dad was very participatory in a lot of those things. And I will never forget him being in a womanless beauty pageant. And he was quite fetching in his 44 double D bra. He came in third runner-up. I was ever so proud. And I think the funniest part of that was watching Mom and all the other wives putting makeup on these guys. That was hilarious. My dad was a man of his word. I remember when Mom announced one day that she was going to quit smoking. And we all thought this was hilarious because she'd never mentioned it before. People had been after her for years to quit smoking, but she never would. And so one day she announced she was going to quit smoking, and Dad said, "Well, if you stay quit 30 days, I'll quit too." 30 days came and went, and at that time I was driving with Dad back and forth to Weyerhaeuser. I worked with him in the summer. And I watched that man smoke his last pack of cigarettes because that was day 30. And by the time he got home, it was to be done. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what he was feeling, but he enjoyed every last cigarette. One thing I appreciate about Dad is that he never really treated me differently than Michael. If I wanted to learn how to shoot a gun, he was more than happy to. If I wanted to learn how to build something, he was more than happy to. If I wanted to learn how to fix a car, if I wanted to learn how to change the oil, he was perfectly willing to teach me that sort of thing. And so later on, I did not know that he was a good pool player. Apparently Woodrow had a pool hall that his granddad, Judge Iverson, ran it for him. My dad would skip school at lunchtime and go play pool. So I didn't realize until later in life. And then he was visiting with me one time and we got to talking about this. And I said, "Well, we should go play." So we go down to a pool hall in West Lafayette, Indiana. And he's never been a person that, he was very competitive. So when he would teach me and Mike different games and things like that, he said, "I'm going to teach you. And you may beat me on the first hand because I'm teaching you how to do it. But after that, you've got to win on your own merit." He figured that was the best way for people to really learn. And so he comes up to me as we're standing there at the pool table and he says, "You know, Julie, I'm not going to just let you win." I said, "I know that. I've met you before." And I said, "But Dad, mark my words, I will win at least one game off of you." And we played 10 games, and I won 3. And lastly, my dad's sense of humor was a little bit nuts at times because a friend of mine one time, she had trouble with a boyfriend that was showing up, and she wanted to not date him anymore. I said, "Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you some of my dad's advice." I said, "Next time he shows up at your door, walk up to the door with a shotgun in hand and say, 'Hello, can I help you?'" As my dad said, if you make them think that you're just a little bit crazy, they'll leave you alone. So I appreciate all of this today. I'm really glad that we'll be sharing stories about him because I want his life to have more meaning beyond that dash.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go. just because of I'm not going to talk. Printer doesn't have a larger font.
I know. So sorry. I should have.
Got to read this through tears. Eric Schneebly came to our house from Switzerland, and he was kind of like a long-lost brother to me from pretty much the day he stepped in our house. We had a lot of fun together, and to this day I think of him regularly. He sent this to read about Dad. His English is not quite as good as it was when he was here. Well, we might have to reinterpret some words. This week, a beloved friend and family member got lost. He went to heaven. I owe him and his family so much. It's almost 30 years ago that I had the opportunity to spend and enjoy a year with Cecil and his family. I got integrated into the family like a full family member. Together with Mike, I passed an unforgettable year with this formal family. This year was very important to me for my later life because I got back home with a lot of life experience. A large part of this experience was given to me from Cecil, who I was allowed to call Dad. What in matter of fact he was for me during this year and also later on. I am a person that had the luck to have 2 dads and 2 moms. Thank you for everything you did for me. I have moved into the digital age and I no longer have a notebook. So I have notes on my phone. I've spent a long time trying to figure out exactly what to say about my father because, fortunately for me, he was always there. And we did quite a bit of stuff together. And I enjoyed all of it. Well, most of it. Sometimes he beat the living daylights out of me. But I'm a better person for it. Throughout my life, I have become a professional hodat. Because when Dad was working on something, he'd say, "Here, hold that flashlight." Right here. One of my fondest memories of my dad was when I was really small. We lived over in Reform in the duplex apartments. And he had a van that he needed to get the motor working in, and he was in the process of rebuilding this motor. And in a driving rainstorm, decided that it was time to go get some work done on it. So he had the cowling off of the van and stuck in the back, and all the other parts and pieces stuck in the back. He threw me into the passenger seat with a flashlight, said, "Hold that." And he crawled under the van to do some work on this in probably 4 inches of rainwater. That's crazy. But he was determined to get it done, so it was going to get done regardless of the weather. Now, there's a reason that Dad is not here today, and that reason is the wind's not blowing. It's about 70 degrees, sun's shining, and there's fish to be caught. So, if Dad had a choice, he wouldn't be here today. He'd be out fishing. He used to wake me up at 4:30 in the morning to go fishing in Demopolis. There's no telling how many fish we passed driving from Reform to Demopolis. But we had to go to Demopolis. we got down there one day and we're out fishing, and we hear two old grumpy people arguing with each other. And Dad's like, that sounds like Woodrow. I said, yeah, it does. And we're talking, and sure enough, a few minutes later, around comes the corner. There's Woodrow and Woodrow's best friend, and I can't for the life of me remember his best friend's name. But they were in the boat, and Papa had fell out of that boat twice that day because he was determined to have a lawn chair in an aluminum boat.
I remember that.
One of the coolest things that me and my dad did when I was growing up is my dad, when I was in the 6th grade, my grades stunk. I had a horrible time in the 6th grade. And my dad told me, he said, if you'll get your grades up, I'll buy you a motorcycle. And I was like, deal. So he bought me a motorcycle, and in the course of about a year and a half, we owned 5. And one time, my dad and I got on our motorcycles, and we rode to Huntsville, Alabama together. It was one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. And I got to do it with my dad. Another thing that he promised me to do one time was after I'd spent countless hours pulling fish out of our pond and putting them in the freezer so that Julie could go to Europe.
Much appreciated. I appreciate your hard work.
After we got her on the plane, my dad sat me down at the kitchen table and he said, Mike, you never once said, why not me? And because of that, if we ever get an opportunity, we'll send you to Europe. I was like, well, that's cool, but I don't see it happening. Well, a few years later, I was going to school over here in Columbus, Mississippi, and my science teacher decided that he wanted to go to Europe on a 10-day summer vacation, see Europe, see everything you can see type tour. He said, is there anybody that wants to go? Yes, there is. I came home and I told Mom and Dad that I wanted to go to Europe, and the science teacher was getting a class together, and Dad was like, but he sent me, true to his word, and I had a great time because of it. Now, Julie mentioned the fact that Dad always said that we would win on our own merit. My dad told me that I would never, ever beat him in a game of chess. And I never did. Because one day I played him to a draw, and we hadn't played since. No matter what I tried, I could not get my dad to play me a game of chess. I did finally beat him in a game of pool, and it was... And this is kind of funny because we remember these things. But I played Dad a game of pool when I was driving across country with my family. We stopped in West Texas. Mom and Dad had set their camper up so that we could have a convenient place to stop for the evening. We stayed a couple of days there with them, went to Carlsbad Caverns. I got to go through Carlsbad Caverns with my mom, my dad, and my 2 children. A trip that I had done with my mom and dad earlier in my life. It was kind of cool. And Angel even went down in the cave, that's a blessing from God, all this. But my dad and I went down to the little recreation place. We played a game of pool, and I beat him. I beat him 2 or 3 games. And he was getting frustrated because when he was trying to shoot, the lens of the frame of his glasses was getting in the way. So he took his glasses off, and I didn't win a game after that.
If I'd only known. Oh, that was the key.
My dad was a really cool guy. I really enjoyed being around him. I enjoyed the fact that when he told you that he was going to do something, he did it. when he told you he wasn't going to do something, he wasn't going to do it. One of the things that I really enjoy remembering, and this is one of the things that happened when Eric was here, is my dad told me one time he almost wrecked his motorcycle. He was riding down the road. He looked off to the side of the road. He looked back, and there was this truck in the middle of the road. So he locks up the tires, slides up right next to the driver's door, looks over at the guy, and at that moment, my dad made up his mind that he was not riding a motorcycle anymore. And from that day on, he didn't. And I did. And he hated every day of it because he was scared I was going to wreck and kill myself. And he came up to me and asked me if I would sell the motorcycle and put the money towards a boat, that he would buy one big enough for me to ski behind. I was like, sounds like a deal to me. So he bought a boat, and when he wasn't fishing, he was dragging me up and down the 10-ton waterway skiing. And I would ski for miles upon miles upon miles with my dad just dragging me up and down the water. It was an amazingly good time. I have a lot of great memories of my dad. I hope that all of you do too, and I hope that you remember it for a long time.
I didn't see much of my granddad, but I have heard lots of stories. Let me make this the right way. Something I heard from Pete Hester, Cecil's first cousin. Should have put many in there. Shortly after World War II, the GM&O railroad that ran through Coldfire, Alabama, started dumping German helmets, hand grenade shells, casings, and lots of other war stuff on the right-of-way, and later covered the stuff with dirt and gravel. All that stuff was meant to be right-of-way fill, and it was, except that a few of us kids from Coldfire beat the crew that was to cover the stuff. Cecil Bonner, Virgil Bonner, and myself, to name a few, carried off as much of that stuff as we could. The three of us got German helmets for sure, and a couple of grenade shells each. I don't remember now all that we did get. Those grenade shell casings were difficult to throw, as they were pretty heavy. So we used them for looks. Anyways, on with the story. That started us playing war games. And those spiffy helmets, we needed some real action. So we got some dry ice, hot fruit jars with the tops, by putting some water in the jars, adding dry ice, screwing the cap on tightly, counting to about 10 or so, and then throwing the jar at our enemy, probably Harold or Billy Ray or whoever else we could recruit. The jar would explode, filling the air with a lot of pop and a lot of cascading glass raining down all around the victim. Yeah, I know it was pretty stupid, but at the time it felt fun. The GM&O Railroad provided us with some good toys for a while. I don't know what happened to all the stuff, but some of it's still buried on the tracks between Coldfire Creek and McShane, I imagine.
And the part about it being a blessing that they live that long, that is true. That's just a part of what I've heard Daddy talk about. Same thing, you know, seriously. Okay, don't be bashful. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay.
So I have a few very defined memories. A lot of it is him pulling us in the wagon behind the lawnmower when I came out here, and fishing, of course, fishing. So to kind of summarize it, he would interrupt anyone to fuss about anything, no matter what you said to the contrary. I came down here for my 8th birthday, and one of my favorite gifts was a tackle box that was filled with art supplies. But Pop just could not understand why on earth I would like that. and I can still hear him saying over and over, I can't believe she'd like a tackle box. I can't believe she'd like a tackle box. I said, it has art supplies. He said, I can't believe she'd like a tackle box. Granny always made some form of boiled chicken whenever we came down to visit, and my favorite thing she made was chicken spaghetti. It's great. And a few years ago, Granny and Pop came out to Virginia, and Granny was telling my mom that she started using canned chicken instead of boiled because it was a lot easier and it tasted just as good. My mom said something to the effect that it was a real change because Granny always made boiled chicken. And that's why it was such a shock to hear this grumbled revelation from Pop. Yep, I hate boiled chicken.
I'd like to say a few words about my brother. He was only my brother. He was my older brother, and I was his baby brother at the time, because at that time there was only two of us. But I'd like to take y'all back to a time before most of y'all were born. We were living in this house right next door. And Julie, I'd like to tell you, I remember the pool table where he learned to play pool. He was in that house. I was about tall enough to barely peep over the rim of the table and see the wooden balls roll around and wondering what they were doing. Every now and then one of them would trap in a hole. But I never really understood what it was all about. But that's where he learned how to play pool. He was I was 4 to 6 years old, so he was 8 to 11 years old at the time, so that's where he learned. I would like to tell you a story where I first found out when my brother was playing in matches. We had walked out of that house underneath the carport, and all of a sudden he grabbed me by the shoulder and told me he wanted to show me something. So he pulled me around the corner of the house, and he showed me a few black smudges on the white paint. And he told me someone was trying to burn down our house. And I really believed him. I wondered who could be burning down our house. All my life, I wondered. I kept wondering about that scene, and all of a sudden, I realized that it was Cecil. Because he had found these matches, and so he had to show somebody. And I was the one. But this was the period. Cecil was not only my older brother, but he was a father image to me. He was a father image for 2 reasons. One is there was 4 years age difference. You know, at this age, 4 years is about like a century. And the second reason is my father was drafted into the Army in World War II in 1944. And all the time he was gone, both in Texas and Florida and training, and then the Philippines and Japan, I looked up at my brother as somewhat of a father image, and I did that for the rest of our lives. And I still do it to a large extent. But he was my father too.
Michael, I wish I'd known you back then. You're funny, boy. I didn't know Cecil during that time. I've only known Cecil a few years, but we've been to church together, and one day he had done some research on Reelfoot Lake. I don't know if any of you know where that is or not, but it's in the northwest corner of Tennessee. And it's where Bill Dance does a lot of his filming, one thing and another. He had done quite a bit of research about the lake, and he got a trip up. We need to carry the girls up there. So thought, well, that'd be good. We got it up, didn't we? And we went. Well, we got almost there, and we're getting really far out in the country. And I'm thinking, well, if Bill Dance done films right there, it ought to be, a huddle house. It ought to be Walmart. These places that the girls like to go, ought to be something. And the further we got toward Reelfoot Lake, the further we got from civilization. And I said, Houston, we got a problem. Because I knew we were going to feed these girls somewhere. Anyway, we got on up there, and there wasn't anything. I mean, absolutely nothing. Nothing. I didn't know what we was going to do. So we walked in, and the guy says, well, y'all have just made our 30th person. And if we've got 30 people, we feed you at night. So we knew we wasn't going to have to drive back 100 miles to find something for these girls to eat. And, of course, Cecil gave him the thumbs up. But the humorous part of it was this. We were out there, and it was the most beautiful sunset. We were out there, and it was the most beautiful day. And we were having a lot of fun. We looked out there, and the guy has a grill set up, and he's putting bologna on the grill. And Cecil said, now that's my kind of man right there. He had big lumps of bologna that he was putting on the grill. My wife wouldn't, I don't know, we might have to drive it 100 miles. Next thing you know, he's putting steak on the grill. And he's putting chicken on the grill. Now, she's a chicken person, so she was okay. But the humorous part of it was we sat down at the table, and we were having fun over that. He and I were going to go fishing the next morning and did. But while we were sitting there, they had styrofoam cups. And unbeknown to the person that served the drink and to us both, who took the last cup off out of the last pack, they didn't want to go to the garbage can, so they took the plastic sheet and stuck it down in this cup. Well, we're sitting at the table, and this is the most laughing I guess I've ever seen Cecil do. We were sitting at the table about to eat, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden my wife's drink, the ice just started raising up out of it. And it just completely came up and just overflowed. Well, needless to say, she didn't want to drink that drink anymore. She didn't eat anything that was there. It was a humorous time, and it was a fun time. And we didn't have a lot of those times, but I enjoyed it. Mary Bell, it was a good time.
Thank you.
Long years ago, me and my wife and family, Mary Bell and Cecil and everything, we all lived in Demopolis. I had been living in Demopolis for a little while, and I don't know how it happened, but Cecil was out of a job right then, and he called me and asked me what was going on in Demopolis. And well, I don't know. I made some phone calls and called. He was mechanic. He could do about anything with trucks and cars and everything. And got a job at Swerman Trucking in Demopolis. And he come down there and stayed, 2 or 3 weeks with me and my wife and my family till they could get moved. House trailer down there. Well, after he went to work at Swerman, he come by one day and said, I need some tools. All I've got is a ratchet and some sockets. Well, I had a good many wrenches, open end, box end, and I took a file and I filed 2 notches across each one of them, and I said, when you look at that notch, you'll know they're mine. I said, take off. So he took off with the tools. About a month later, 2 months, something like that, we had a little bit of land down below Demopolis and had an old tractor. tore up. And I go, Cecil, and I said, you still got my tools? He said, huh? I said, all of them were the Nazis filed in. Oh no. I took them to coal fire and gave them to my uncle, lived right out there. The next day, I was down there fiddling with the tractor, and Cecil come driving up. He went to town and bought 2 sets of tools. And he said, you can have either one of them if you got the one you want. And I got the one I wanted, and Cecil would do what he said he would do.
I've lost friends, lost cousins. My heart is broken because he was a good man. And we've had some good times together, real good times. He'd love to argue with me. And I would go and he'd say, I'd say, you got my bathroom cleaned out? Yep, but I don't know why. How long are you staying this time? Well, I might stay 2 days, but according to how you treat me, I might stay a week. I'm going to treat you real good because I want you to go home. We went on vacation for a week, and we had a ball. He named me and Mirabelle the 2 loose women because we like to get out and go. Sometimes he'd go, sometimes he wouldn't. But he was always willing to give us eating money. He'd say, I'm going to buy you 2 loose women's breakfast today, or lunch, or whatever it might be. And he did, and we went to this wedding chapel, and it was close to their anniversary, I don't remember which one. And so I said, okay, y'all get in here and let's get your picture made in front of this sign. She sat down in his lap. And I'm not a photographer. And he said, you better hurry up. I'm fixing to don't hurry. So I said, well, I want our picture made together. Well, like us, we got on that sign. I said, hold it just a minute. It says wedding chapel. I said, wait just a minute. We got to move out from that. We got to get up this driveway here and get our picture made. So we got from the church and made our picture. But we really have had some good times. And sometimes I would just walk in and I'd say, I'm back. He'd say, I was afraid of that. I always glad to see me. I always felt welcome. I never felt like I was unwelcome, no matter what he said to me. We argued constantly about something. And when I left, he always cried. And I did too. Because I knew, you never knew with his health condition if there would be another time that you would get to see him. So as he had to go to the nursing home, one day I went there, I walked in and I said, I went often. I went sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. One day I went in and I said, I'm back. And he kind of laughed about it. And I said, and I'm going to stay. But, of course, I was kidding with him. He kind of laughed, and I think that's the last time that I even think he recognized who I was. But Cecil Bonner was a good man. And it's been spoken. If he told you he was going to do it, he done it. And so we all know where he's at now. The lifestyle he was having to live was not peaceful. But praise God, he's walking now. And he knows what's going on.
I didn't know Cecil that well. I am Don Bishop's daughter, and he couldn't be here today. So I'm going to speak for him because he really wanted to come, but he knew that he couldn't get across the parking lot, and he couldn't get up the steps to come into the church. So he stayed at home. But he loved Cecil. He loved his opportunities. I said I didn't know them very well, and I was older, and they started traveling together, and I would hear these stories, and they were talking, laughing, and it they were always into something, I think. In fact, I suspect many of those stories that involved Cecil back in the day out here in Coalfire involved Donald, too.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard one or two that I would have chewed my children out if they had done. So I was like, don't say that in front of my children. Don't tell them that story. And this past week, my dad posted on Facebook a picture of from one of their trips. It was in the winter of 2002, January and February of 2002, and I don't know. I guess it was Dad's truck that got stuck in a sand pile.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Arizona?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they got stuck in a sand pile, and a National Park border agent had to come help them pull them out of the sand pile, pull the truck out of the sand pile. And the problem was that Mom and Dad and Cecil and Mary Bell had a truck bed full of contraband in the back of the truck.
Mom, hiking sticks.
When I first read that, I was like, oh no, another story about that. And Pete Hester, in fact, said, tell us about the contraband. And Dad wrote, he said, Pete, it was the stalk of a plant that we made walking sticks out of. We had a pretty good load of it, but it wasn't above the sides of the pickup. And the border agent never looked in the back of the truck. She just pulled them out and let them go. She did pose for a picture. So I think they had some really good times, and I know Dad was really sorry he couldn't be here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mary Bell, I may change my mind about going with you at the trip out to Miss Stacy's out there. After hearing that right there, I'm not sure if I want to chance that. And learn that. Whew.
We'll try to keep you out of jail.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My stars. I know that there is so much that can be told. I know I've heard Daddy, and I've heard Jerry, and that's mainly where what I know comes from, because by the time I got old enough to really value that information and those memories, there were so many that passed on. And, of course, it wasn't around Harold that much or Virgil, either one, to listen to them. And for the fact of the matter is, by the time I got to be a teenager, the family had started sort of going their separate ways. I know that. And I really miss that. I really do. And I know there's so many more stories to share. And I want you to, as Julie said, or Mike, which one of you said it, want to hold on to those memories. I want you to hold on to them. I want you, and we'll have a time here in just a minute where you can share, because face it, some of the stories may need to be told in private. I was talking with Miss Helen Dyer yesterday, and she sends her condolences, and Ken Dyer as well, because they couldn't be here. But as I was telling Maribel that Miss Helen was telling me that Ken and Cecil had, right after high school, they were in Washington, D.C. Okay. I didn't know from him. And they were somehow affiliated with the FBI. I never knew that. I had no idea that Cecil was affiliated with the FBI.
Well, then I have another story to tell you when we're in the visitation.
Okay, so we'll try. Well, I was going to say, I hope it's in a good way. I hope, but anyway, I told Miss Helen, I said, well, we're going to have a time where people can share the stories. And she looked at it for a minute, and she said, and if you know Miss Helen, she'll pause every once in a while. She's thinking and contemplating what she's going to say. She said, well, Mike, I'm not sure that all the things Ken knows needs to be told, Definitely not. But I do. I want you to share those with the family. We'll have a time here after the service here in just a minute. At this time, George, are you ready? Are you on the ball? Okay. I just want you to simply listen to this song that was written by Aunt Vera, Cecil's Mom, if y'all permit me to say that, and Errol. Errol, I don't want to leave you out. Next time I don't say anything, you slap me, okay?
Arkansas is a long way away.
But Cecil and Aaron and Alan's mother, Aunt Vera, and Norma put the music to this. So, George, if you're ready, would you play that, please? That sounds exactly like her right there. I mean, not as much as the voice, but the words right there, it sounded exactly like her. We want to invite you to stay and visit with the family in our fellowship hall. You can go through this room and down. It involves going to stairs either way, so be careful. But you can go down through this room and downstairs and just follow the path. You can't get lost. Or go around the front. Well, maybe some of you could get lost, but there's enough folks here we can guide you. Don't worry about that. Just follow the celebration. It'll get loud. We're going to get loud here in a minute, right? There's never been this many Bonners in one place and it didn't get loud. So, or go around the front and go through down the sidewalk right here and then down the steps as well. And I just realized I'm doing a better job directing than I was directing down to the fellowship hall than I was directing the music a while ago because I sort of petered out. But anyway, we do want to invite you to stay and visit with the family and share your experiences with the family and just have a wonderful time. As I say, this is a memorable time, memorable time, and we want to celebrate the presence that God has blessed us with Cecil and with all the joys and everything that goes along with having known him for so many years, being part of your life as well. We want to close out with something that's very familiar, and that is the Lord's Prayer. And some of you may be sitting there thinking, my goodness gracious, I had to remember the Psalms 23, now the Lord's Prayer, but yes, that's exactly right. So see, you're getting a prelude to a church tomorrow. And so if you will recite that with me, and we're going to use that to dismiss with, and it's appropriate, I think. But this time, let me get my glasses on where I can see, because I know it, but I don't want to mess up, because I don't want y'all to follow me into the ditch. Yep, Mike, I heard you laughing most right there too, so that would be very embarrassing. But this time, if you would recite this with me, and we'll use this for our closing prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Some are using a different version. It is. I've got 4 different versions of myself in here, so this is what you're saying. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, this is King James. So, oh, where do we stop at? And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. You can go now.
Mrs. Bonner, on behalf of the President of the United States and a grateful nation, I present to you this flag in honor and memory of your husband for the service he gave to our country. Would the friends please stand?
As we dismiss, if you'll permit me to say one thing, just one thing. We know, we have assurance, the Bible tells us that you know a tree by the fruit it bears. And I have confidence from the testimony, not only of the family, but also from what I saw when I was around Cecil. I have confidence that, as Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, that he embraced the hope that transcended the hope that we have in this life. And that hope has enabled him to see his Savior. I also believe that when Paul wrote in there, he says, be absent in the body, be present with the Lord. And I believe that Cecil saw his Savior. I heard the lady testify a while ago. What she said about Cecil is walking now. He's not suffering the ill effects of the bodily strokes that he had, you know. I plan on seeing Cecil one of these days. I plan on seeing a lot of other loved ones that's gone on, and they're not here with us. I hope and pray that you're planning on doing that as well. And understand this. I don't know where this concept that came about that just simply to die a physical death is all that's required. It's more to it than that. You must be reconciled back unto God through His Son, Jesus Christ. Think about that as we leave here today. You are dismissed. I know I snuck that in on y'all. I apologize if it offended, but I felt led to say that. You are dismissed. Enjoy the fellowship, the time we have here today with the family. Thank you for coming so much today.